Takeoff power. Takeoff power. Call out VR. VR. Gear up. Gear up. Max continuous. Max continuous.
Today, you can fly to Europe in half the time it used to take to go across the continent in an airplane. But today, everything in the air moves faster, and on the ground, everything is more crowded. The airlines are meeting the demand from a nation committed to travel right now. Yesterday, aeronautics was simply the science and art of building and flying aircraft. Today, it is quite something else. Communications, schedules, service. Passengers, pilots. Behind all this, Aeronautical Research, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Research to improve both the airplanes and the art of flying them. In less than 20 years, our airlines have captured the lion's share of the nation's passenger dollar. Now, nearly all of the world's air commerce, nearly all of the world's air passengers fly in airplanes designed and built in the United States. A great national revenue, and solid evidence of the leading role played by United States technology. Transportation system is being tested now by our demands. The future will demand even more. Forecasts of population growth indicate that by 1985, the great cities of the nation will tend to grow into super metropolitan regions. Already, the airspace and airports in these regions are congested. Delays are encountered. Safety is threatened. Demands for better air travel are being made. Through the 70s and into the 80s, NASA will be working on those problems that can be solved by improving technology. The crowded airports, the crowded sky, problems of safety, problems of short-haul aircraft, and of flight beyond the speed of sound. NASA will push for technical advances in all these areas. The development of short-haul aircraft receives much of NASA's research attention. Aircraft with speeds of around 575 miles per hour, ranges of 1,000 miles. They will, in all probability, land within the city, a mid-city takeoff to another mid-city airport, and a landing. VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, use engine thrust for lift. For short-haul transport, these aircraft may eventually make an important contribution. There are many operational problems to conquer. One critical area is the transition from vertical to forward flight. Another is fuel consumption. A small transport could use over half its available fuel in just 10 minutes of hover time. These These are research aircraft flown by NASA pilots. They are not operational as passenger carrying planes, but they show the way to the short-haul aircraft of the future. Because of these special aircraft, we can look forward to the day when 150 people will board one, rise straight up out of the city, fly to a vertical descent in another city. But for short-haul aircraft, tomorrow's runway in your city may be only 1,500 feet. Possibly it will be on an elevated platform or over a highway. When the jet comes to the city, the results can be deafening. NASA, as a part of a joint government industry team, is working toward the development of a quieter engine. Two basic approaches are being taken. The jet engine is being redesigned so that high power can be reached with less noise output. And the nacelles which house the engines are being treated with sound-absorbent materials. The treated nacelles decrease the noise, but range is restricted and operating costs rise with this approach. Another step toward quieter engines is the redesign of elements of the jet engine. Here, the air inlet was modified. A diaphragm regulates the flow of air into the jet engine. When noise suppression is not needed, the diaphragm is open. Maximum flow is available. Close the diaphragm. An aircraft tire and a wet runway. NASA and Air Force teams conduct landing safety and runway slipperiness tests. This C-141 landed on different runways all over the world, in slush, snow, flooded conditions, on dry and on ice-covered surfaces. The results proved that porous asphalt surfaces and grooved surfaces are the most effective for aircraft braking under wet conditions. Results from this kind of safety research are being applied toward improving our highways. These parallel grooves carry away the water and expose the braking surface. The 100,000 small planes in our skies outnumber the airliners by 50 to 1. NASA has developed a simple collision warning device. Energy from this xenon light is received by a sensor on another aircraft. In flight, the flashing xenon light on the approaching aircraft triggers a warning indicator in the cockpit of another airplane. This alerts the pilot and tells him the direction and level, high or low, of the approaching aircraft. This allows the pilot time to take the proper evasive action to avoid the approaching plane. Increased safety is the main objective of NASA's research into the problems of general aviation. The urgency of this research stems from the large number of general aviation aircraft, the accident rates, the increased sophistication of the aircraft, and of the flight procedures pilots are called upon to perform. In particular, NASA is interested in the critical takeoff and landing areas of operation. The accident rates reflect the need to make piloting tasks less complicated with simplified controls, better instrument presentations, less room for pilot error. the full-scale wind tunnels at NASA's Ames and Langley Research Centers tested some of these general aviation aircraft. Improved aerodynamic profiles resulted, and some have led to basic design improvement. The wings of an airplane leave a turbulent wake in the sky. A large airplane generates a large wake. Of course, pilots can't see this hazard. It is called trailing vortex. A light aircraft encountering it can be thrown out of control. NASA is conducting primary research into the causes and the possible corrective measures to eliminate this danger to aircraft safety. At NASA Langley Research Center, studies into the problem involved a C-47 and smoke from a tower. These films show how the vortex forms in the wake of the plane. Under light wind conditions, the phenomenon may last for several minutes. NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center research engineers are adapting lasers to monitor these invisible vortices as they occur. The research results indicate that this turbulence is particularly dangerous to small aircraft at low altitudes, during takeoff and landing operations. A small aircraft may be thrown out of control and may even break up in the air under stress. Research was conducted with the C-5A, a huge airplane. The larger the aircraft, the more severe is the turbulence coming from the wing tips. The C-5A, with a length of 247 feet and a flight design weight of 728,000 pounds, is the biggest airplane flying today. Over the desert in California, vortex studies were made with a NASA aircraft flying behind a C-5A. Severe turbulence was encountered, causing a complete 360-degree roll. Based largely on NASA's findings, the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, recommends a flight separation behind a jumbo jet of at least 5 miles and 2 minutes flying time delay en route. Aircraft landing operations, especially under poor visual conditions, pose many problems for the pilots and crews. NASA's Ames Research Center is looking into this area. The pilot needs a means of direct altitude control on final approach to landing, which is independent of changes in power settings or airspeed control. The lift spoiler, activated by a switch on the pilot's wheel, allows him to control his descent. A spoiler is used in landing research by Princeton University flight research teams working with NASA. The approach to landing at the Princeton field is made by using the wing lift spoiler for altitude control. Devices like this could eliminate many landing accidents, particularly in the general aviation field. At NASA's Ames Research Center, a human factors program looks into the process of decision-making and information handling by flight crews. For example, when does a pilot decide to break off an instrument approach to a landing? Many things could affect this decision, and human beings sometimes make the wrong decision. This involves information handling and performance limits. How many pieces of information can a crew be expected to handle? A typical New York to Washington flight of 35 minutes involves up to 55 reports from pilot to controller concerning the flight altitude of the aircraft. Another problem in this NASA study, pilot disorientation. If either pilot or co-pilot misses his bearings, becomes confused during a critical approach, will the other pilot be in a position to take over? Heads-up displays like this one, which allows the pilot to see the glide path information and at the same time to watch the runway lights, will help especially during the critical point of decision height. That point when the pilot decides to go ahead and land or to take it around for another, perhaps better approach. Ames psychologists are concerned with this particular point in the instrument approach. Their findings have revealed that many airline pilots feel they are overburdened during an instrument approach.
Okay, that looks good. Reset. Okay, Bob, this run will be with SAS on, auto throttle off, computer ready for run number 2.
Okay, here we go.
Simulators are used extensively in flight operations research. This landing approach simulator at NASA's Ames Research Center can reproduce the flight characteristics, the control feel, the sounds of almost any aircraft, whether it is flying today or is still on the drawing board.
Does the SAS seem to make it any more stable?
Some, although I'm still getting...
A TV picture is presented to the pilot as the television camera moves over this model of the approach to the airport.
Provide as much assistance as I thought it would. Maybe
A realistic flight can be flown by the pilot and invaluable experience gained, experience that can be duplicated only in the actual aircraft.
Okay, that finishes run 2.
This aircraft is entering an area of turbulence. NASA researchers want to know what the limits of the pilot's control are during a thunderstorm penetration. This pilot, riding the rails of a simulator, experiences the same G-forces encountered in a thunderstorm. The use of flight simulators in research has many applications. At NASA's Ames Research Center, this 6 degrees of freedom simulator and the Bell X14A twin-jet VTOL aircraft operate as an integrated simulator team on vertical takeoff and short takeoff and landing problems. These problems can be flown in the simulator with no danger to the pilot or aircraft, then checked in actual flight. The Ames Advanced Aircraft Simulator can duplicate the flight characteristics and control responses of the aircraft now in operation, and the performance of the aircraft of the future can be programmed into this simulator. Here you can ride in the SST, fly the Atlantic, land in Paris, and you never have to leave the hangar. This is an airborne simulator. The instrumentation carried aboard can be set to give the pilot control responses, airspeeds, turn rates, and climb rates of many different jet aircraft. Today, because of the information NASA receives from its simulators, wind tunnels, and other research tools, the new aircraft which emerges from the factory is no longer a completely unknown thing to be proven only in the air. When the U.S. supersonic transport finds its way into the flight schedules of our airlines, behind it will have been a long history of NASA research towards supersonic flight. Each prototype must go through the full range of NASA transonic research and qualification. In the transonic region, around the speed of sound, military aircraft in tight maneuvers encounter severe buffeting. Here we see the F-14 and the F-111. Problems of concern here are the pilot's tolerance to buffeting and his ability under these conditions to accomplish his mission. And we must know operational limits. This C-5A tail is tested to destruction. Through studies in the transonic tunnel, NASA confirmed that gust control spoilers on the B-52 may add years of operational life to this aircraft. XB-70 pointed the way for the large supersonic aircraft of today. The YF-12, the Blackbird, the fastest jet engine aircraft in the world today. In the air, NASA and Air Force pilots in joint research probe sustained flight at Mach 3, 3 times the speed of sound. The Blackbird flies some of these studies at altitudes in excess of 75,000 feet. On these flights, NASA flight crews are monitored to determine the limits of the ability of a pilot to control the exact flight path of a supersonic cruise aircraft. The Blackbird flying at these high speeds builds up a great energy potential, and the physiological stress this places on the flight crews is not clearly known. For both military and commercial supersonic flights of the future, we must know the pilot's stress limits and the measured ability of the pilot to hold a flight path. This is essential information. Research with the YF-12 is an important step toward the aircraft of the future. At NASA's Flight Research Center, Edwards, California, this F-8 will be the test bed for a new and revolutionary airfoil, the Supercritical wing. Aircraft of the future will have this wing, and because of this wing, these planes will be considerably more efficient. Perhaps up to 20% will be added to their speed, range, and cruise economy figures. The most important part of the wing is the airfoil shape. This is the airfoil of a present-day wing. It has a large amount of curvature on the upper surface, which increases the speed of the air over this surface and produces lift. The air flowing across the upper surface goes supersonic before the airplane itself does. This leads to a shock wave in this region, which increases drag. The airfoil on the new supercritical wing has a flattened upper surface. This reduces the air velocity over the surface and moves the shock wave far to the rear, which almost eliminates the shock wave drag. To regain the lift lost, the rearward region is curved down. Wind tunnel tests have indicated substantial improvement in the performance of the airplane with the supercritical wing. This is the F-8 without the new supercritical wing. The present wing is being removed and the supercritical wing will be put on the F-8. Flight tests with the supercritical wing are beginning during 1971. The X-15, a rocket-powered aircraft. In the late 50s and into the 60s, NASA's research with her proved that we can fly into nearby space and land safely. The pilot's ability to control re-entry and to return from space to a precise landing on a runway is basic to NASA's space shuttle concept. The space shuttle will be thrust into space, orbit the Earth, and return to make a piloted landing in an airport. The space shuttle will be reusable for up to 100 missions. A B-52 simulates the steep approach of the space shuttle as NASA pilots and engineers carry out continuing research into the program. Once more, a crew stands by under the wing of a B-52. The HL-10 lifting body, a craft used in research toward the day of the space shuttle. HL-10 is powered with a small rocket engine. It flies to altitude over Rogers Dry Lake in California.
I'm looking good, Bill.
Okay, everything's good down here.
Good.
Stand by for Theta, Bill. Your energy's looking real good, Bill. Okay, 10 degrees left when you get a chance.
Now I'm on a heading 30. How's that look, Pete?
That's real good. It's a mile and a half now, Bill. Okay, 1 mile.
The pilot executes an approach simulating the space shuttle approach to a runway.
Okay, you're over the intersection right now.
Your gear's coming down. Landing gear is 16.
NASA's series of flights with these wingless aircraft established some of the body of research knowledge we will need to bring spacecraft back from orbital flight and land them on a runway.
Anything else we can do for you?
Nope, we'll see you inside.
Okay.
Okay, all stations debriefing will be at 1:45, and Bill, let's go to page 20.
Let's do what, Pete? You do nice work.
The shape and direction of aeronautics in the 70s and into the 1980s are being determined now by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration and its research.